Good morning, growers, and welcome to the Growing Garden channel. Today we will be discussing the common mistakes you often make when growing tomatoes. There are 3, plus an additional important one. Have you ever experienced the disappointment of starting with a batch of 50 or 60 tomato plants, only to have half of them perish or fall sick? Well, fear not, because today I will be sharing some valuable advice with you to ensure success. Make sure you stick around until the end, as that additional mistake is particularly crucial. Furthermore, I will provide you with some logistical tips on proper organization to help you keep track of all the necessary tasks involved in growing tomatoes. And trust me, there are quite a few. Tomatoes are the quintessential stars of the summer garden, but they do demand a certain level of care. So join me as we head to the vegetable garden and explore these essential 3+1 aspects that should never be overlooked. In order to create this video footage, my initial intent was to maintain a slightly wild and uncontrolled appearance for the flower bed. Regrettably, our original approach had an adverse effect when we erred and neglected to properly trim our young plants. As a consequence, we encountered a problem of excessive growth, which led to 2 main issues. First and foremost, the abundance of foliage diverts the plant's energy towards the leaves rather than the fruits, thus hindering the ripening process of the tomatoes. Secondly, this luxuriant growth creates a stagnant environment that fosters the proliferation of mold, particularly Aperonospora, which can pose harm to the tomatoes. Now, let us delve into the parameters that it is essential to consider in order to effectively prune the plants. It is crucial for us to familiarize ourselves with feminili and accurately identify them during this process. Feminili refer to small branches that emerge in the leaf axil. To easily distinguish them, I adhere to the rule of 3. If 3 branches sprout from the same point on the tomato plant, the middle one is a sucker. A sucker comprises a stem, a leaf, and the actual sucker itself. The removal of these suckers carries utmost importance. Here is another instance of a stem, a leaf, and an additional sucker. Furthermore, an additional occurrence can be found situated above stem, leaf, and sissy. You witnessed the density of the small space that contained numerous sissies. If we leave them all, they will grow and overshadow the bush I mentioned earlier. The sizzles, in fact, can grow even larger than the stem itself. Consequently, they drain a significant amount of energy from the plant. As you can observe, this one is already a little bit big. We can manually remove it to maintain its desired size. This task can easily be accomplished by hand. By the way, there are 2 main uses for these sissies. Firstly, we can macerate them to create a solution that repels various insects. This is particularly useful for tomato plants, which belong to the solanaceous family and naturally contain high levels of solanine in their leaves. These potent compounds are extremely bothersome and repellent to insects. To create the repellent, we can soak the sissies in water for about a week or 10 days, strain the liquid, and then use this macerate to ward off insects. Alternatively, we can use it as a preventative measure to keep insects from approaching the plants altogether. Secondly, it is remarkable to note that these sissies, despite being small plants, have a fascinating ability to develop roots from the base of their stems. If we plant them in small pots with fertilized soil and water them daily, they will produce a new generation of seedlings, effectively extending our growing season. After approximately 20 days, we can consider transplanting these seedlings and continue harvesting tomatoes until September comes along. It's a little bit of patience work because it's a matter of going after the females even when they are very small. One aspect of tomato pruning involves removing the base females to prevent duplications. For instance, these 2 should be removed to avoid creating duplicates. We can remove them without fear. Also this one. Similar to the eggplant, the tomato has a tendency to split into 2 portions at an early stage. This particular tomato plant was weak, and it even resulted in the death of its leaves. However, we can take advantage of this by allowing 2 twin stems to grow and then removing the new female stems that will develop later on. By doing this, we can indulge the growth of the strongest twin stems. These stems should be tied to a stake, which can be easily identified by the distinct V shape it creates. This process should be done when the stems reach a height of approximately 30 to 40 centimeters, just like with the eggplant. It is likewise true that there are several varieties that cannot be propagated, but they are typically few in number and mainly consist of creeping plants that don't require staking. Hence, it would be beneficial to inquire about these exceptions when purchasing seedlings from the nursery. One major mistake that should be avoided is neglecting the care of tomatoes and failing to address any issues that may arise. This is crucial because there is always a risk of mold and insect infestation in the soil. It is not a question of whether or not these problems will occur during the season. They are highly likely to happen. The best approach is to take preventive measures right from the start, beginning with the transplanting. Starting from the end of April and continuing every 2 weeks, it is recommended to use selected treatments. These treatments include macerates, zeolite, propolis, bicarbonate, and copper, which are all effective methods against mold and insects. Particularly, they are successful in mitigating the negative impact of the destructive bug that has caused significant damage in recent years. Additionally, to further combat this bug, it is advisable to utilize Cuban zeolite and kaolin in order to confuse and deter it. Moreover, NEMH oil, macerates, and pheromone traps can be employed to keep the leaves of the tomatoes clear. By utilizing these treatments, whether in combination or rotated, you can effectively discourage the bug from attacking the tomatoes. Let's go quickly to prepare one of these products. In this case, let's prepare propolis. Let's combine forces to create propolis, while also discussing some general guidelines that apply broadly to all products. Typically, the amount we add will vary based on the product, ranging from 200 to 500 grams for every 100 liters of water. In terms of proportion, this equates to 2 to 5 grams per liter. These approximate doses work well for many products. For copper, for example, the amount used can be found in the range of 200 and 500 grams per 100 liters, depending on the type of copper employed. Bordeaux mixture requires a bit more copper hydroxide, while needing slightly less of it for other variations. As always, remember to consult the product label for specific dosage instructions. In my case, the dose of this propolis for 2 liters is 6-8 grams. I weighed them beforehand. Here they are in this cork. Let's go to mix. Let's give it a good mix. We go to give the product to the tomatoes. We provided them with a clever solution to prevent the growth of mold. I intentionally left this iola unsupported to demonstrate the cause of the error. This causes the seedlings to frolic in such a manner that the fruit ends up closer to the ground. Consequently, they come into contact with moisture and run a higher risk of developing mold at a faster pace. Unfortunately, I was unable to find bamboo or swamp reeds. However, I eventually stumbled upon these acacia suckers that look quite promising. I have never tried using them before, so let's observe the outcome. One essential point to note is that the acacia should be peeled, especially at the base. Otherwise, if we use acacia stakes without peeling, we will unintentionally end up with attractive acacia plants in the garden which might not be desirable. In this scenario, I suggest using a pinate, a type of axe knife. For safety purposes, always ensure that the blade of the pinate faces away from you while working. I wanted to mention another important thing about my new endeavor, something I've never done before. Hunting, as I mentioned earlier, is akin to removing weeds, so I haven't caused any harm by taking away these pests from the environment. In fact, I've actually done a favor to the banks of the ditch where I eliminated them. Because the suckers grew rapidly, it was easy to use a pen tool to remove the thorns along with the few twigs they had. I carefully took off these thorns for both the pleasing appearance it brought and the preservation it allowed, resulting in better longevity of the wood. Additionally, I plan to incorporate these peeled thorns into the mulch by evenly spreading them out to enhance their current appearance. At this juncture, we have the option to fasten. As you can observe, I secure it using an environmentally friendly twine composed of iron and paper. The crucial factor is to refrain from over-tightening the seedling during this particular stage of the season, as it will already necessitate 2 bindings. These strings possess the same texture as ties found on freezer bags. In the end, even the aesthetic result leaves me quite satisfied. This white one is quite pretty. If you're interested in learning more about tomato supports, you can check out a video I made last year. In the video, I discussed the different types of supports available. Now let's talk about what I promised to share at the end of the video. One important aspect to consider is logistics. If you perform these 3 tasks approximately once every 2 weeks, you can ensure that you won't forget about them. However, there may be times throughout the year, such as during sphemening, when it's beneficial to carry out these tasks more frequently, perhaps once a week. But as a general guideline, performing preventive treatments, ligation, and spheminylation once every 2 weeks is a good practice. You will do quite well. And finally, we had said 3 + 1 mistakes not to make. Let's come to the +1 to the last one. I bet you have happened to have tomatoes rotting at the bottom become black around the little dot at the seed, or let's say ruining practically the whole. The deformation of fruit can occur due to either a calcium deficiency or an uneven water supply, which disrupts the adequate distribution of calcium to the plants. To prevent this issue, it is crucial to ensure that the soil contains a sufficient amount of calcium. There are multiple methods available for supplementing the soil with calcium, including the use of calcium carbonate, ash, bone meal, or even eggshells. However, it is equally important to maintain the correct moisture level by providing the appropriate amount of water. In conclusion, this video provides valuable insights on how to effectively care for tomato plants. If you have any concerns or questions, please feel free to ask in the comments section. Thank you for watching, and may your experience with growing tomatoes be rewarding.